Hey, everybody, what's up? Welcome in to Best on the Board at The Athletic, presented by BetMGM. We are heading into the first ever Week 18 in the NFL, still the regular season, even though we are comfortably into January. And with that, allow us once again to wish you a Happy New Year, our first episode of the 2022 calendar year. We're going to take a look ahead at some of those Week 18 games and also talk a little bit of Monday Night Football before we turn it over to the NBA side of things and break down the Monday NBA slate. Michael Beller here with you, joined off the top of the show, as I frequently am here on Mondays, by Andrew DeWitt. And DeWitt, Week 18, man, it's going to be an interesting one with the teams that have stuff at stake, the teams that maybe have something at stake but could lose having that at stake halfway through their game. It's going to be a fun one to figure out.
Yeah, like you look at the Chiefs, they obviously need to win. They got put on the Saturday game, which they might like the extra day of rest going into the playoffs. But that also means like the Titans kind of know what will happen on Sunday if they need to win. Just semi-unfair. I mean, a little bit by the NFL, but they had to fill those time slots in.
Yep.
But I mean, it's a great week, just like especially in like pool play and not just necessarily what you're doing on, on the betting side, but on like your straight up pick'em leagues, like. Which teams have the motivations this week? Which teams don't care? Which team need to lose to get those like 2, 3, 4, 5 slots in the NFL draft? Like
in the draft.
But the problem is the players care. Like the Lions yesterday,
players care no matter what. Yeah,
the players care. Like I honestly don't believe. Like in the Texans, it's another great example of two teams that seem like they've been playing really hard lately. Playing for their coaches, seem to care about their coaches, want to keep their coaches around. Even if it's both coaches are in their first year and they're probably not getting fired, but. I mean, it just seems like it's an interesting week to like look and like think through the psychology of what does this team have to play for? Because early in the season, everybody just wants to win because they just want to win. And now, it's just like what is in front of each team? What motivations do they have? What injuries do they have? What injuries do they have that we don't know about? So that like Jalen Hurts is a perfect example of one of my bets later. Like he's still probably a little banged up. So
yeah, and they really don't have anything to play for.
Right, exactly. They're kind of stuck where they are. So it's just an interesting. It's just an interesting dynamic between all these teams. And tonight's game, if you want to jump into tonight's game.
Yeah, we can start with that.
Yeah, tonight's game is like we saw a 6-point swing in the spread last night between because the Browns were favored by 3. And then all of a sudden they got eliminated last night late. And now the Steelers are favored by 3 at BetMGM. So, or last time I checked about an hour ago. Yeah. So it's just interesting to see how that kind of the psychology of it is just so interesting of, you can really just sit down and look at all the scenarios, look through what team has to play for what, and then kind of make your bets that way and, kind of really dive into the significance of what each player is thinking about too.
It's a perfect way to jump into Week 18 with this wrap-up game, this Monday night game for Week 17, being Browns and Steelers, being a team that suddenly went from being favored to having nothing to play for. The Steelers, meanwhile, still alive in the playoff chase. They would need a little bit of help, but if they win out, they are definitely going to be a team that is in contention to make the playoffs here. So they suddenly have something to play for. Before we do look at Week 18, let's take a look at some plays that we want to make for this Week 17 wrap-up Monday Night Football game. Browns and Steelers, Ben Roethlisberger's last game in Pittsburgh, unless something crazy were to happen, I suppose, in the playoffs. But what do you got for this one? What are you looking at tonight?
I know we keep making these first TD bets on these Monday Night Football games just for we were talking before the show. I think these just first TD bets are a lot of fun to make. You get some decent odds on them. It's kind of something you get rewarded usually pretty quickly on it. I have Deontay Johnson to score the first touchdown, getting 8-1 on it. I like the odds there. Chubb is 450. Najee Harris is 5-1. Kareem Hunt is 10-1. Jarvis Landry is 10-1, and Claypool is 12-1. I just see if it's going to be a thrown touchdown, I really like Deontay Johnson's chances of getting this, and I could see this being like a 20-yard score down the field. I like the Steelers' motivation in this game. I like Big Ben's last home game. One thing like I stood out to me, and I didn't know this, realized going in, like his family traveled to Kansas City for the game. That's the first time his family has ever gone on a road trip with Big Ben. So he kind of knew that was going to be his even playoff games. I think maybe Super Bowl, but outside of that, his kids had never traveled to the game. And so he brought his kids along for that, day after Christmas game. So I just thought that was interesting. I think Big Ben really cares about his legacy in Pittsburgh. And I think they're going to be motivated to play tonight. So that's why I kind of I see the Steelers scoring the first touchdown. I just kind of like throwing the odds at 8-1 on Johnson to get the first touchdown.
19-year career Ben Roethlisberger is wrapping up here, never has lost to the Browns at home. So definitely something at stake with that. I still sort of like the Browns. I mean, I know that they are now out of playoff contention. I think that's still the better team, though. And so to suddenly be getting +3 rather than the -3 you were getting in them a couple of days ago, I like that. But my favorite play in this game, these two teams are under machines. They have been for weeks now. But the Browns really have been all season. Neither of these teams, I mean, these teams just aren't built, DeWitt, to play high-scoring games. And we've seen both of them be competent enough to punch up and play some higher scoring games when they have to, when the other team forces that issue and they can stay competitive. The Steelers did it most recently against the Chargers about a month or so ago. The Browns against the Packers back on Christmas. That was a 24-22 game. Not super high scoring, but the Browns ended up putting together a couple of scoring drives in a row in the second half to turn what looked like a total laugher into something of a contest. So we've seen both of those teams, when they have to force the issue, get to that point. But neither team is built to play like that. Neither team wants to play like that. And so when you have two teams like that against each other, we've seen it really all season long that the unders have been trending very well in these games where we're looking in the high 30s and the low 40s and the game stays under. I mean, we had a few this week, right? You had the Saints and the Panthers, and that was a game that was at like 37.5, 38, and that was comfortably under. You had the Bears and Giants at 38, and the Bears put up 29 points on their own, and that game stayed pretty comfortably under because the Giants only scored 3. Like, these teams, we know who they are, and I just don't see the Browns and Steelers breaking out of that shell in this game here. So I think under 42.5 is one that stays pretty safe for us. I think 1st to 20 wins this game regardless of the motivation on either side.
Yeah, I think that's good reasoning on all that side. I mean, the weather is going to be a factor too. I mean, it's going to be cold. It's going to be windy, especially in steel. Like, it's just, especially in Heinz Field, like the wind just swirls in there. You get kickers missing field goals all the time in there, which helps the under too.
Yeah. All right, let's take a look ahead quick here to Week 18. Now, we're both going to throw out a couple of picks for our Week 18 look-ahead lines. And again, we are sort of trying to figure out, so I'm going to say my first one off the bat. I'm going to take the Chargers -3 against the Raiders. And, this is a game I circled right away because we know no matter what happens Saturday, no matter what happens in the beginning of the day Sunday, these two teams care because this is a win-and-in game for both the Chargers and the Raiders. And when we're looking at these Week 18 games with all these variables, we said like teams that definitely care, teams that start out caring but are scoreboard watching and see that now our motivation is gone because we're locked into our playoff seed. Like the Bengals could be a team like that. If the Chiefs win on Saturday and then they don't really care anyway, like there's so many things like that. We know for sure the Chargers and the Raiders are going to care. So I circled this game and I circled the Chargers. They're just a better team. And the Raiders have done a hell of a job over these last 3 weeks to keep themselves alive and in the playoff race and to play themselves into a de facto playoff game against the Chargers here in Week 18. But the Chargers just have the higher ceiling. The Chargers have been the more consistent team all season. The Chargers are the team that I trust to do offensively what they want to do offensively when they go into a game. We just haven't seen that with the Raiders for some time now. And they can pop up a nice game here and there, and we've seen that. And the win over the Colts, very impressive. Let's also remember that Carson Wentz wasn't really practicing all week and was cleared very late in the week to be able to get into that game. And maybe that looks different if Carson Wentz has a full normal week of practice. Either way, we look at these teams, we size these teams up against one another all season long. The Chargers have just been the better team, the more consistent team. And I think that holds here in Week 18 with the Chargers going to Vegas. They get the win, they get it by more than 3. And I like them to be in the playoffs here.
Yeah. This line opened at 2.5 last night, and I bet it at BetMGM like pretty quickly when I was writing down the opening lines last night. I just believe in Justin Herbert that he's going to win the game like this. So
let's take a look at one of the Saturday games for your first pick here. Again, Chiefs Broncos. That is the first game on Saturday. You're taking a look, however, at the second game, Cowboys and Eagles. Cowboys 3-point favorites against the Eagles right now. As we said, the Eagles, their seed could change, but not really a ton at stake. They're locked in. They're for sure the 6 or the 7 seed. They don't know who they're playing. So they don't have a ton at stake here. Is that part of the reason why you like the Cowboys in this one?
Yeah, and one of the big reasons too is that, I like that, Jalen Hurts got banged up a couple weeks ago before the bye, and then he was questionable play against Washington, and then he missed the game, and then he was, they were even talking about before that Washington game got delayed till Tuesday, what is he going to look like? He hasn't been running a lot the last couple of days. He didn't run a lot against Washington last night. They were handing the ball off on the goal line. So I just think that he's banged up. So I think this is a good chance for the Eagles. Like, why wouldn't you just start Gardner Minshew and get Jalen Hurts healthy for the playoffs? Yep. Rest some bodies. They're really not playing for anything. This line opened at 2. It's now 3 at BetMGM, but it's shaded towards the Cowboys minus 120 on the juice. So, I mean, this line's probably about to jump to 3.5. And then once the Eagles come, Nick Sirianni is going to come out and go, I'm not really playing my guys this week. And this, this line's going to jump to 4 or 5. The Cowboys need to get a win to lock in their seeding. I think this is a good spot for the Cowboys. And I don't see a reason like they're not going to go rest a whole bunch of players either. And they need to win just to lock up their seeding. So I just like the Cowboys in this game, shading towards the under if I had to lean one way, but I think this line's just going to go up. So that's why I'm kind of going with making the bet on the Cowboys now and then seeing what happens with the line. If Sirianni comes out and says, I'm playing all my starters, keep them fresh or, sharp, then maybe my opinion changes later in the week, but that's my rationale behind it.
If you can avoid the 4 seed in the NFC, you want to. I mean, no team's going to come out and admit it, but realistically, you would rather play the Eagles, Saints, or 49ers than the Cardinals. And if you're the 4 seed, you're playing the Cardinals, or somehow if the Cardinals win and the Rams lose, you're playing the Rams. Obviously, you'd rather play one of those 6-7 seeds than whoever ends up being the NFC West loser. That's just a fact. The Cowboys need to win this game if they are going to have a chance at getting off that 4 line, being the 3 seed and getting to play the 6 seed. And so that's really what you're looking at here for the Cowboys. They're motivated. The Eagles, do they really care if they're the 6 or the 7? I don't think so. So Jalen Hurts being healthy, that's what they care about. This does feel like the sort of game where they could just get Gardner Minshew a start and doesn't really matter to the Eagles win or lose. Let's go to our second picks here. I'm going to talk about something I just talked about. Give me the Browns-Bengals under 44. Now, the Bengals are an interesting one, right? Because they can actually still be the number 1 overall seed in the AFC. Is it going to happen? Almost certainly no. And this could be totally closed out on them if the Chiefs win on Saturday. Then they can't be the 1 seed at that point. And then we're sort of talking about the same thing with them. Is it a huge difference for them if they're the 2 or the 3 or the 4? I mean, you're going to be playing you're right. The Colts, the Bill, the Patriots, whoever's going to sneak in and get that last seed, the Chargers. Regardless of where you are, you're playing a quality team. Obviously, if you're the 2, you're going to have a much better shot at being in the playoff, playing a home game in the AFC Championship game than if you're the 4. But then you could also argue, if we're the 4, would we rather play the Titans in the next round rather than the Chiefs if they're the 2? And if we're the 3, there's so many of these games. The point of it is that it's not worth trying to figure out for these teams and trying to play those seeding games. And so what this comes down to is let's be healthy going into the playoffs. We all just saw with our own eyes just how good these Bengals can be when they are at full strength with that wildly impressive win over the Chiefs to lock up the AFC North. And so this leads me to believe that if the Bengals starters do play, it's going to be treated like something of a preseason game. Let's stay fresh. Let's get a couple of series under our belt, and then let's get Joe out of there. Let's get Jamar out of there. Let's get Joe Mixon out of there, and let's get ready for the playoffs. And so with that, combined with what I've already talked about with the Browns and the way that offense has been, and frankly, as good as that defense has been all season, I think this game stays under 44.
Yeah, I think, and we saw Joe Burrow look like he was kind of banged up yesterday at points during the game. So I just think the Bengals don't really have a lot to play for. So even if they do play the starters, I see them pulling them. So there's no reason to get hurt, bang up the injuries like this. And we're forgetting other factors. Like this is week 17. This is 17 games out of 18 weeks for these teams right now, and they have to go into the playoffs. And these teams know they're gonna have to win 4 in a row to win the Super Bowl, except for the Titans if they can take care of business on Sunday. So I just see, I think these coaches are going to be really smart about getting players rest this week if they can.
Yeah, Mike Vrabel, speaking of betting, has probably locked himself up Coach of the Year with all the injuries that team had to ultimately be the number 1 seed, which feels pretty comfortable that they're going to be able to do with a win on Sunday. Just remarkable what that team has done in the second half of the season. Let's take a look at a team that does have something to play for against a team that very much does not have anything to play for. In fact, losing is probably good for the franchise long term. I am talking about Bills and Jets. The Bills 16.5-point favorites against the Jets, and this is indeed a game the Bills need. If the Bills lose and the Patriots win, the Patriots win the AFC East. So the Bills are motivated to win this game. What do you got in this one, DeWitt?
I think the Bills are going to win. Let's just throw that out there. I just don't think that the Bills are going to try and cover a 16.5-point spread. Number one, the coach does not care about the spread. Number two, the Jets offense had a pretty good day yesterday. Zach Wilson looked pretty good against the Bucs. They probably should have won that game. Minus the Antonio Brown antics. I just think that, I see the Bills getting a comfortable lead here, but I don't see them. There's no reason to push the pedal down anymore. Like once they wrap up the win, they're good. They can cruise in the second half, run the ball. I just see that the Bills are not going to be able to cover this spread. That's 16.5 in any NFL game is a lot. And I just see the Jets are going to keep playing for their coach. They're going to keep playing through the snaps. They're going to want to finish their season on a good note. The GM's going to be looking at this film, who to keep, who to get rid of in the offseason. And I just see the Jets have a little bit of motivation on the players' side and the coach's side to, keep this game close. I don't think they're going to win, but I think they're going to hang around and make it a close game.
Like the Bengals, the Bills will also know going into this game if they have a shot at being the 1 seed. Because if the Chiefs win, that knocks out the Bengals, that knocks out the Bills. And the Patriots actually have like a 1% chance of being the 1 seed as well. But all of those teams need the Chiefs to lose on Saturday. And so if the Chiefs win that game on Saturday, which obviously they are comfortable favorites to do, then all those teams have a little bit less to play for. But as I said, Bills still need this game to win the AFC East. Jets have been a little bit frisky. They've covered a couple of spreads in a row. They've covered 3 spreads in a row now, 3-0 in their last 3 weeks against the spread here with a couple of wins in there also. But Jets definitely looking at a big spread against the Bills. We'll certainly see how that one all goes. Week 18, always, I guess it's not week 18, always week 7, the final week of the NFL season. Always an interesting one for us in the betting world because of the motivations, the seeding, everything that goes into play. We look at it here on Monday. We'll be back with you a little bit later in the week to do so as well. That's Andrew DeWitt covering things for us on the NFL gambling side of things at The Athletic. DeWitt, thanks for being with us, man.
Hey, have a good one.
All right, we're going to move on to NBA here in just a second. But first, a message from our partners at BetMGM, the presenting sponsor of Best on the Board. Right now, bet $10, win $150, plus get a free 3-month subscription to The Athletic if you go to BetMGM.com and use the code TheAthleticPod. For Athletic subscribers, this is a free 3-month tack on. If you already are a subscriber to us, you just get 3 more months for free added on. If you're not yet a subscriber, obviously, number one, what are you waiting for? Number two, maybe you're waiting for this. You'll get your first 3 months for free, and you also get that bet 10 to win 150 over at BetMGM. So go to BetMGM.com, use the code TheAthleticPod, get that bet 10 to win 150 plus 3 free months at The Athletic. This is a new customer offer for people at BetMGM. Terms and conditions apply. All right, NBA time and an absolutely loaded Monday slate. So we welcome on Melas from No Dunks to talk through this with us. Dude, our cup runneth over, man. I was looking at game after game after game and prop after prop. We have a lot of fun options tonight.
Absolutely, Michael. The NBA does not stop giving just because the holiday season is over. It's continuously giving us some good stuff and some good storylines as well.
Yeah, for sure. We've got a bunch that we want to get into here today. So let's go ahead and do it. Let's take a quick look back at the last time you and I were together talking about this. A 1-1 week for you, a 2-0 week for me. That runs your season record here to 12-7. Very profitable. I'm back to 500, 6-6. So a little bit less than profitable, but we can turn that around right here with just a couple of successful picks. We've got a lot of props that we're going to talk about here. We do have one side that we're offering up. You are offering that one up, and it is in one of the biggest spreads of the day. Sixers, 13.5-point favorites tonight against the Rockets. What do you got for us here?
Well, the Sixers, 13.5-point favorites against the Houston Rockets. As DeWitt said, 15.5 points in football, big. 13.5 in basketball, doable, especially with this unraveling Houston Rockets situation. On the weekend, Christian Wood violated a team rule, so he didn't start the game and then didn't want to come back into the game after half, while his teammate Kevin Porter Jr. pulled an Antonio Brown and left the arena at half, got in his car and said, "No, thank you. I'm done with this game," after having a bit of an altercation with John Lucas, the assistant coach. Those two guys are suspended for tonight's game, and I feel like they are going to just be lacking against the Sixers, especially with Christian Wood's situation. Christian Wood's missed 2 games this year. The Rockets have lost those games by 35 and 13 points. They're already bad in 10-point games. They're 4-20 in 10-point games. They've lost 7 in a row, and I think the Sixers are starting to find their groove. Without Christian Wood, the Rockets' best player, Joel Embiid, will have a heyday. Now, I am a bit worried that the Sixers coming home after a 3-game road trip, it's said in the NBA that first game back is just a little sluggish. It kind of feels like a home game, but the Sixers are getting it together. And this is when the good teams start to rise, and the Sixers did win all 3 of those road games, and they're getting in that groove. So I think they will destroy the Rockets tonight. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. Maybe the Rockets rally together around the guys who actually want to be there. However, I do see the Sixers just playing as a far better team right now. Not a great option for Joel Embiid. It's probably a blowout in Philly.
Yeah, this is I mean, you're already a bad team, and you take a guy like Christian Wood off the court for you, and that's just it's a killer. It's a killer for my fantasy team too. Not that anyone cares about that, but no Christian Wood tonight is just I think something where you lose a lot of hope when you lose a player like that, and keeping it close becomes a lot taller of a task for a team like Houston. So that's what we're looking at to start things off. Let's go to the prop world where we're going to dovetail off each other for our second pick. I'm going to throw out Bradley Beal going over 27.5 points. However, for my first pick, really feeling this one. Washington against Charlotte, one of the highest totals on the board today. This is something you and I talked about, 5-6 days ago when I was throwing out Terry Rozier props about how this Charlotte team, this is just a team that offense breeds offense. It breeds it for themselves. It breeds it for the team that they're playing against. They are playing in very high total games. They are the most bankable over team from a betting perspective in the NBA this season. I don't see why that changes tonight against Washington. Beal, meanwhile, averaging 29.8 points in his last 5. Charlotte, incredibly friendly to perimeter scorers. They are 29th in expected field goal percentage allowed, 24th in expected three-point percentage allowed. That should be music to Brad Beal's ears. I think he gets over 30 tonight.
Yes, he is looking really, really good now. He started the season a little bit slow, but I'm not sure if it's just getting over COVID, where he didn't have a great experience, but I think he's just looking a lot better. And I got to run with you on these prop calls, Michael. That Terry Rozier double prop call, I think that was completed in the first half, if I'm not mistaken.
He needed 1-3 in the second half. He had the points already in the first. He needed 1-3 in the second that he got pretty early in the third quarter.
Yeah. So Brad Beal is something I got to roll with you with. He's looking real good. So it's, again, as we say here on Best on the Board, just bet on good players having good games. And I'm not sure why I keep going to this team thing with the Sixers. That tends to be the team or the games that I lose, and I tend to get the props right. But always feel good going in anyway.
Well, let's go. Let's go to the props to wrap things up here. I'm going to stick with the prop. You're also going there. We're going on points. We're going on points scored. And these two sort of work with one another. Memphis and Brooklyn getting together today, a marquee game on the Monday slate, maybe something of a statement game for Memphis going up against Brooklyn. And we're looking at a couple of guards on either side of this one to go over their point scoring props. I'm going top of the top. You're not quite going there, but Patty Mills and John Morant, they do sort of fit together here. Let's hear the argument for Patty Mills going over 14.5.
Well, the Brooklyn Nets have lost 2 games in a row, and I think this team looked at itself in the mirror after Saturday night against the Los Angeles Clippers, where they lost to a Clippers team missing 7 guys from their rotation. They were up 11 in the fourth quarter, and they were calling each other out after the game. And I think a good team and good players like Kevin Durant and James Harden will come back and have a really good one. Now, why does Patty Mills benefit from that? Because he is that sort of supplementary scorer. If they're moving the ball, if they're moving on defense even, and transitioning to offense, Patty Mills will be the recipient of lots of open passes. And so the last couple games that the Nets have lost, he's only had 10 field goal attempts in each of those 2 games. While when they were going a little bit better, the 6 games before that, 17.5 field goal attempts. So that 14.5 point line that he's got tonight, I think should be surpassed strictly if the field goal attempts are there. And when they're playing better again, those will be there for Patty Mills. So I think he bounces back. And they want to have one good game here before Kyrie Irving debuts on Wednesday. I think they do want to get this thing rolling in the right direction after 2 bad losses. And Patty Mills, you'll see him put some points on the board because of it.
Yeah, maybe an opportunity for Patty Mills to say, hey, Kyrie's coming back. Kyrie's Kyrie, but don't forget about what I can do as a key member of this backcourt and a key member of this rotation. John Morant sitting on that same 27.5 point prop that Brad Beal is at tonight. I like this. I think we're getting a little bit of a favor from the books here, leaning on the fact that Brooklyn is a very good defense. It's a strong defensive team, especially when you're looking at expected metrics, first in the NBA in both expected field goal percentage and expected three-point percentage allowed. So John Morant definitely going to have his hands full with that matchup. But you talk about a team that can play that good a defense, that can throw that many bodies at John Morant in a game that still gives us a total of 226.5. So even though we're expecting maybe some good defense on Brooklyn's side of the ball here, this is a game that could still easily play its way into the 220s, into the 230s, and that plays its way into Ja's hands when he is scoring as well as he has been recently, 33, 41, and 30 in his last 3 games. So I think part of the reason that we're getting this down to 27.5 is because of Brooklyn's defense. And, maybe that applies to certain players in the league, but Ja Morant is Ja Morant. When he's going like this is a guy who can be a scoring machine. I'm going to take what I feel as something of a little bit of a gift from the books here and just let Ja get to 28, get me a win. I feel very good about that while going into it eyes wide open, knowing that this is not necessarily the same sort of defense as he has played over those 3 games where he has been pouring it in.
Very interesting, because I do think the Nets will lock it down a lot more than they have the last couple games. But I agree with you in that defense is one thing, but guard defense is something else. And the Nets do lack some on-the-ball defense or even pick-and-roll defense at times. Eric Bledsoe went off against them on Saturday, 27 points in that game when the guys guarding him out on the perimeter, James Harden included, Bruce Brown included, just sometimes were a little clueless in terms of their pick-and-roll coverage, and that's why Bledsoe was able to go off. So I would say, I haven't looked too deeply into this, but I imagine guards tend to score against the Brooklyn Nets. And so this 27.5, although a big one, it's a juicy number. As you said, he has been able to rock that number because he is a superstar in the making. So it wouldn't be shocking to see him hit 28 or more.
Yeah, like the 3-point props you can get on him and Desmond Bane in this one as well. Something to think about if you are looking for other directions to get invested in what really should
just
be.
Like your Terry Rozier play, your secondary guard play against this Nets team.
Yeah,
it's a good play.
It's always a play that we're going to be looking at. And hey, a very fun game ahead of us tonight with these two teams getting together. Like I said, potentially a statement game for the Memphis Grizzlies. Certainly one where they're going to want to show up and show that this really is a team that's going to be reckoned with in the West, have to be reckoned with in the Western Conference. That's going to do it for us here on this episode of Best on the Board. Thank you so much for listening to us. For Tass, for DeWitt, I am Michael Beller. As we say every single episode, happy betting. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.